I'd like to thank Fresno State for organizing this event, and Chuck and Connie and everybody, Fran. I want to bring greetings from a couple of people who are very far away, who would love to have been here today, and who are in other ways. First from David Oliveira, who with Chris Buckley and I, we put together How Much Earth. David says, I remember Phil literally a bit every day, mostly by thinking about a poem or being grateful for a moment of his generosity. He was generous with his criticism, without doubt, and generous with his talent, his kindness, his caring, generous with the gift of his life. And also from Loretta Collins Kloba, who's in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Philip Levine made me feel that there was a place in poetry for my working class experiences and my connection to the cultural mix and beauty of the San Joaquin Valley. He was a tough but generous mentor. His poems are tough and full of love. Walt Whitman said, all goes onward and outward, nothing collapses. I believe this. Philip Levine continues in what he has offered up to us, and we take it up because whether the matchless example of his poetry, whether the depth and passion of his teaching, whether his insistent ethos dedicated to social justice and the dignity that should be accorded to all people, we take it up because he impressed upon us a responsibility to poetry and what it could do to make a vision of how we could be better. A great poem is a profound accomplishment, and Phil's many great poems continue to make the world better in the face of so many impoverishing forces. And we have to take up the work. We have to pass it on, onward and outward. David and Loretta both touched on Phil's kindness and generosity, something we've all experienced. He did so much for us. He even came and talked to my high school students when I taught at Fresno High. I'd offered him a bottle of Cabernet. It came as special selection that I found for him to do this. In his office here on campus, I once remarked on his kindness, thanking him for having helped me so many times during my time at Fresno State. He looked me in the eye and said, "Do me a favor, don't tell anybody." But he had this reputation. He was a little bit proud of this reputation of being a hard ass, the boxer in him maybe. And his first punch was his honesty, a kindness that could open a cut, yes, but a true kindness and the foundation for so much. His generosity, which always is one of the first words you hear from people who knew him and had something he shared with Franny. I think he would say because of Franny, who welcomed all of us and loved us despite the tendency of some of us to show up on their porch unannounced and knock on the door. It opened. Kindness that comes from honesty makes families, and here we all are, the family he and Franny and their children made together, and his poetry family that keeps growing as Phil's lessons and his poetry and his love for what's right continue to do their work in the world. I'm going to finish with a couple poems, one that I wrote after an afternoon with Peter in his backyard last April, and then I'd like to finish with one of Phil's. The poem's called Calliopes. In your backyard, mulberry tree in full summer shag, vines up a lattice beside the table. We sip wine, speak of your lost best friend, Phil. It was hard, all you could say. The cancer, what it took from your heart, from his last days, from all of us. In the silence that must follow, 2 hummingbirds zoom from the tree, sip red syrup from a feeder, zip back into the shag. Calliopes, 2 you point, noting the green back, the purple-red beard. Your tired voice delighted now. I thought there was only one. Two muses, I laugh, beautiful. Two, you say, watching, and you smile. Begin a funny story about Phil. And this one, it's not one of his most famous poems, but I read it and I loved it, and it's spring, and baseball starts next week, and Phil loved jazz. And I love it because it ends in a time when it never should have been this dark, but it's optimistic, and I loved it when I read it the other day. It's called Standing on the Corner. It's in Names of the Lost. Until Tatum passed, blind as the sea, heavy, tottering on the arm of the young bass player, and they both talking Jackie Robinson. It was cold, late, and the Flame Show bar was crashing for the night. Even Johnny Ray calling it quits. Tatum said, "Can't believe how fast he is to first." "Wait till you see Mays," the bass player said. Women in white furs spilled out of the bars and trickled toward the parking lot. Now it could rain. Coming straight down, the man in the brown hat never turned his head up. The gutters swirled their heavy waters. The streets reflected the sky, which was nothing. Tatum stamped on toward the bland hotel. A wet newspaper stuck to his shoe, his mouth open, his vest drawn and darkening. "I can't hardly wait," he said.